Hello everyone, and welcome. In this video, we are going to study Hamlet, one of the most important tragedies written by William Shakespeare. Hamlet is a tragedy about a young prince whose life changes completely after the death of his father. He learns that his father may have been murdered by his own brother, who has now become king and has married Hamlet's mother. Hamlet decides to discover the truth and take revenge, but his attempt to do so leads to deception, hesitation, madness, political conflict, accidental deaths, and finally the destruction of almost the entire royal family. The play is not simply a story of revenge. It also examines questions about death, morality, appearance and reality, madness, corruption, hesitation, revenge, family relationships, political power, and the difficulty of knowing the truth. In this lesson, I will explain the complete plot of Hamlet from the opening scene to the final death. We will follow the play in its proper chronological order and discuss the important characters and events as they become relevant. Before we begin, if you find detailed English literature explanations useful, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more complete summaries, plot explanations, and literary analysis. Now, let us begin with the story. The play is set mainly in Denmark, particularly at the royal castle of Elsinore. At the beginning of the play, Denmark is ruled by King Claudius. But Claudius has only recently become king. The previous king, King Hamlet, has died. King Hamlet was the father of Prince Hamlet, the central character of the play. Hamlet is deeply affected by his father's death. He is also disturbed because his mother, Queen Gertrude, has married Claudius very soon after King Hamlet's death. Claudius is not only Hamlet's uncle, he is now his stepfather and the new king of Denmark. Hamlet considers his mother's quick remarriage disturbing and morally questionable. He is already grieving for his father, and he feels that the rest of the court has moved on from the death much too quickly. At this point, however, Hamlet does not yet know that his father's death was actually a murder. The opening scenes establish an important atmosphere of uncertainty. At night, guards at Elsinore see the ghost of a figure who looks like the dead King Hamlet. They are unable to communicate with it properly, so they decide to tell Prince Hamlet about the apparition. This introduces the supernatural element of the play. Hamlet comes to the place where the ghost has appeared. The ghost identifies itself as the spirit of Hamlet's dead father. It tells Hamlet that it has not come merely to frighten him. It has come to reveal the truth about the king's death. According to the ghost, King Hamlet was murdered by his own brother, Claudius. The ghost explains that while King Hamlet was sleeping in his garden, Claudius poured poison into his ear. This killed him. Claudius then took the crown and eventually married Queen Gertrude. The ghost therefore presents Claudius as both a murderer and a usurper. The ghost asks Hamlet to avenge his father's murder. However, it also tells Hamlet not to punish his mother directly. Hamlet should leave Gertrude to her own conscience. This revelation completely changes Hamlet's situation. Before meeting the ghost, Hamlet believes that his father died naturally. After meeting the ghost, he believes that his father was murdered and that the murderer is now ruling Denmark. Hamlet promises to remember the ghost's command. But an important question remains, is the ghost telling the truth? Hamlet does not immediately kill Claudius. Instead, he decides to investigate. This decision is extremely important because the rest of the tragedy develops from Hamlet's attempt to determine whether Claudius is actually guilty. After meeting the ghost, Hamlet tells his friends Horatio and Marcellus that he may behave strangely. He announces that he may pretend to be mad. This is Hamlet's first major strategy. He wants to investigate Claudius without revealing what he knows. If Hamlet openly accuses the king, Claudius may realize that Hamlet knows about the murder. By appearing mentally disturbed, Hamlet hopes to observe people without making them understand his real intentions. This creates one of the major questions of the play: is Hamlet actually mad, or is he pretending to be mad? The play makes it clear that Hamlet deliberately adopts strange behavior, although his emotional and psychological condition becomes increasingly complicated as the story progresses. Claudius and Gertrude notice Hamlet's unusual behavior. They are concerned about him and want to understand the reason for his apparent madness. Claudius therefore sends for two of Hamlet's former school friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They are instructed to spend time with Hamlet and discover what is troubling him. Hamlet quickly understands that they have been sent to spy on him. This is important because it shows that Hamlet is constantly surrounded by people whose motives he cannot fully trust. The theme of appearance versus reality becomes increasingly important. People pretend to be Hamlet's friends while secretly serving the king. Hamlet, meanwhile, pretends to be mad while secretly investigating the king. Another important character now becomes involved, Polonius. Polonius is an advisor to King Claudius and the father of Laertes and Ophelia. Hamlet has previously had a relationship with Ophelia. Ophelia is a young woman who loves Hamlet, but her father has warned her to be careful about their relationship. Polonius believes that Hamlet has become mad because Ophelia has rejected him. He presents this explanation to Claudius and Gertrude. Polonius believes he has discovered the cause of Hamlet's behavior. But the audience knows that Hamlet's real concern is the murder of his father and his suspicion of Claudius. Polonius therefore becomes another example of someone who thinks he understands Hamlet but does not understand the real problem. Hamlet later encounters Ophelia. Their relationship has become complicated because Ophelia has been instructed by her father to distance herself from Hamlet. Hamlet behaves harshly toward her. He questions her honesty and tells her that she should enter a convent. His behavior is difficult for Ophelia to understand. For the audience, this scene is also important because Hamlet's behavior can be interpreted in two ways. He may be deliberately behaving strangely as part of his plan. At the same time, his grief, anger, and obsession with death and betrayal are beginning to affect his emotional state. Ophelia is deeply distressed by Hamlet's behavior. Her tragedy later becomes one of the major consequences of the events surrounding Hamlet. A group of traveling actors arrives at the castle. Hamlet knows them and remembers their acting abilities. This gives him an idea. If Claudius really murdered King Hamlet, perhaps Hamlet can use a play to observe Claudius's reaction. Hamlet asks the actors to perform a play that contains a scene resembling the murder described by the ghost. He asks them to present the murder in a way that reflects the circumstances of his father's death. Hamlet's plan is simple. If Claudius is guilty, perhaps the play will make him react emotionally and reveal his guilt. This is one of the most famous ideas in the play, using theatre to reveal hidden truth. The actors perform before Claudius, Gertrude, Hamlet, and the court. The play depicts a king being murdered by another man who then takes his position and marries the dead king's wife. This closely resembles the story told by the ghost. Hamlet carefully watches Claudius. During the performance, Claudius becomes deeply disturbed. Eventually, he interrupts the performance and leaves. For Hamlet, this reaction is extremely important. It strengthens his belief that the ghost was telling the truth. Hamlet now feels much more certain that Claudius murdered his father. The play has therefore achieved its purpose. It has not produced a formal confession, but Claudius's reaction provides Hamlet with evidence that he considers convincing. After the performance, Claudius is deeply disturbed. He recognizes the resemblance between the play and his own crime. He decides that he must pray. Hamlet encounters Claudius while Claudius is kneeling. This creates one of the most important moments in the tragedy. Hamlet has an opportunity to kill Claudius. However, Hamlet notices that Claudius appears to be praying. Hamlet reasons that if he kills Claudius while Claudius is praying, Claudius might die in a state of repentance and therefore receive forgiveness. Hamlet does not want this. He wants Claudius to suffer the consequences of his crime. So Hamlet decides to wait for a moment when Claudius is engaged in something sinful. This decision is another example of Hamlet's hesitation. But there is also an important dramatic irony here. Claudius is actually struggling to pray sincerely because he does not want to give up the benefits he gained from the murder. So Hamlet's opportunity to kill him passes. Hamlet then goes to speak with Queen Gertrude. Polonius secretly hides behind a curtain in the room because he wants to listen to their conversation. Hamlet confronts his mother about her marriage to Claudius. He speaks strongly about what he considers her moral failure. During the conversation, Hamlet hears someone behind the curtain. He assumes that it may be Claudius. Hamlet draws his sword and strikes through the curtain. But the person hiding there is not Claudius. It is Polonius. Hamlet has accidentally killed him. This is a major turning point in the tragedy. Hamlet intended to confront the person he believed was spying on him, but he killed the wrong man. Polonius's death will have serious consequences. His son Laertes will later seek revenge against Hamlet. His daughter Ophelia will be devastated. Claudius will also use the death as an additional reason to remove Hamlet. During Hamlet's conversation with Gertrude, the ghost of King Hamlet appears again. However, Gertrude cannot see it. Hamlet can see and speak to the ghost. The ghost reminds Hamlet of his original purpose, revenge against Claudius. It also tells him not to become distracted from that purpose. The scene is important because it shows that Hamlet remains committed to the ghost's command. But Gertrude's inability to see the ghost also raises questions about Hamlet's psychological condition. The audience has to consider whether the ghost is a supernatural reality or something connected to Hamlet's disturbed state of mind. The play does not completely resolve this question. Claudius now knows that Hamlet has killed Polonius. He considers Hamlet dangerous. However, Claudius cannot simply execute Hamlet publicly because Hamlet is the prince and the circumstances could create political problems. Claudius therefore decides to send Hamlet to England. He gives Rosencrantz and Guildenstern sealed instructions for the English authorities. The instructions order the execution of Hamlet when he arrives. Hamlet does not know the full details of the plan at first. But he becomes suspicious. During the journey, Hamlet discovers evidence that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are carrying orders concerning him. He manages to alter the situation and escape. He later returns toward Denmark. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern remain connected to Claudius's plan and ultimately become victims of the very orders they were carrying. Meanwhile, events at Elsinore take a tragic turn. Polonius is dead. Hamlet has disappeared. Ophelia has lost her father and is emotionally overwhelmed. She begins to behave in a disturbed manner. She speaks through songs and fragments of thought, often referring to death, flowers, love, and betrayal. Her condition becomes increasingly serious. Gertrude reports that Ophelia has drowned. The play leaves some uncertainty about whether her death was accidental or suicidal, but the characters treat it as a death associated with her disturbed condition. Ophelia's death is one of the most important consequences of Polonius's death. When Laertes hears that his father has died, he returns to Denmark. He is furious. Unlike Hamlet, Laertes does not spend much time debating whether revenge is necessary. He immediately wants to punish the person responsible. Claudius tells Laertes that Hamlet killed Polonius. Laertes therefore becomes determined to kill Hamlet. At the same time, the death of Ophelia increases Laertes' anger. Claudius recognizes that Laertes can be useful. He therefore begins to develop a plan to eliminate Hamlet. Hamlet returns to Denmark. On his way back, he encounters a group of soldiers. They are preparing for a military conflict connected with Fortinbras, the young prince of Norway. Fortinbras is an important character even though he has limited direct interaction with Hamlet. His story provides a contrast to Hamlet. Fortinbras acts decisively and is prepared to risk his life for political and military goals. Hamlet reflects on the willingness of other people to act while he himself has struggled to act. This contributes to his growing awareness of his own hesitation. Hamlet eventually arrives at the place where Ophelia is being buried. He does not initially know that the dead person is Ophelia. He learns of her identity during the funeral ceremony. Hamlet is deeply affected. Laertes enters the grave and expresses his grief for his sister. Hamlet then reveals himself and declares the depth of his love and grief for Ophelia. Hamlet and Laertes become involved in a confrontation over the grave. Their conflict is important because it establishes the personal rivalry that Claudius will later exploit. Hamlet now understands that Laertes is also motivated by grief and revenge. Claudius decides that Hamlet must be killed. He works together with Laertes to create a plan. Laertes is skilled with a sword. They decide to arrange a fencing match between Laertes and Hamlet. The match will appear to be a friendly sporting event. But Claudius and Laertes plan to make the sword dangerous. Laertes will use a sharpened sword with poison on its tip. Even a small wound will therefore be fatal. Claudius also prepares a second method of murder. He poisons a cup of wine. During the fencing match, he will offer the poisoned drink to Hamlet. This gives Claudius two possible methods of killing Hamlet. Laertes agrees to participate because he wants revenge for his father's death and his sister's suffering. Before the final duel, Hamlet speaks with Horatio. Hamlet has become more accepting of the uncertainty and danger of life. Earlier, he often hesitated because he wanted certainty. Now he recognizes that human beings cannot control every outcome. He tells Horatio that he is prepared to face whatever happens. This represents an important change in Hamlet. He is no longer simply trying to calculate every possible consequence. He is becoming more willing to act. This change prepares the play for its final sequence. The fencing match begins. Hamlet and Laertes fight before the court. At first, Hamlet performs well. Claudius prepares the poisoned wine and offers it to Hamlet. Hamlet refuses it at that moment. Gertrude then takes the cup and drinks from it. Claudius attempts to stop her, but she drinks the poisoned wine. She is unaware that it has been poisoned. The fencing continues. Laertes wounds Hamlet with the poisoned sword. Hamlet is therefore fatally poisoned. During the struggle, Hamlet and Laertes exchange swords. Hamlet then wounds Laertes with the same poisoned weapon. Laertes realizes that he is also dying. At this point, Laertes confesses the truth. He explains that the sword was poisoned and that Claudius was responsible for the plot. The hidden conspiracy has finally been exposed. Queen Gertrude is dying from the poison. She identifies the drink as poisoned and warns Hamlet. Hamlet now understands that Claudius has attempted to murder him. Laertes also admits his own responsibility in the plan. He recognizes that both he and Hamlet have been caught in the consequences of the revenge scheme. Laertes asks Hamlet for forgiveness. Hamlet accepts. This is important because Laertes and Hamlet have been placed in parallel positions. Both are sons who have lost fathers. Both have been driven toward revenge. But their methods and personalities are different. Their final reconciliation occurs only when both are already dying. Hamlet now turns his attention to Claudius. Claudius has caused the death of King Hamlet and has now arranged Hamlet's murder. Hamlet finally acts. He forces Claudius to drink the poisoned wine and wounds him with the poisoned sword. Claudius dies. Hamlet has finally completed the revenge demanded by the ghost. However, Hamlet himself is also dying because of Laertes' poisoned sword. The revenge is therefore completed at an enormous cost. Hamlet knows that he does not have much time left. He asks Horatio to remain alive and tell the truth about what has happened. Horatio is devastated and considers dying with Hamlet. But Hamlet stops him. Hamlet wants Horatio to survive so that the story of the tragedy can be accurately reported. This is significant because throughout the play, truth has been difficult to establish. People have lied, spied, manipulated others, hidden their intentions, and misunderstood events. Hamlet therefore wants Horatio to become the reliable witness who can explain what really happened. Hamlet dies. The central character of the tragedy is now gone. At the end of the play, Fortinbras, the Prince of Norway, arrives in Denmark. He learns that the Danish royal family has been destroyed. The deaths include Hamlet, Claudius, Gertrude, Laertes, Polonius, and Ophelia. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern have also died as a consequence of the earlier plot against Hamlet. With the royal family effectively destroyed, the political situation in Denmark changes. Fortinbras takes control of the situation. He is presented as the person who will inherit political authority in Denmark. The play therefore ends not simply with Hamlet's death but with a major political transition. The personal tragedy has become a political one. It is useful to understand the complete chain of events. King Hamlet is murdered by Claudius. The ghost tells Prince Hamlet about the murder. Hamlet decides to investigate before taking revenge. He pretends to be mad. Claudius becomes suspicious. Hamlet uses the performance of a play to test Claudius. Claudius reacts in a way that confirms Hamlet's suspicions. Hamlet has an opportunity to kill Claudius but delays. Hamlet confronts Gertrude. Polonius secretly listens to the conversation. Hamlet kills Polonius by mistake. Claudius sends Hamlet to England to be killed. Hamlet escapes and returns to Denmark. Ophelia becomes mentally disturbed and dies. Laertes returns and wants revenge for Polonius's death and Ophelia's suffering. Claudius and Laertes arrange a poisoned fencing match. Hamlet accepts the duel. Gertrude drinks the poisoned wine. Laertes wounds Hamlet with the poisoned sword. Hamlet wounds Laertes with the same sword. Laertes reveals the conspiracy. Hamlet kills Claudius. Gertrude dies. Laertes dies. Hamlet dies. Horatio survives to tell the story. Fortinbras arrives and assumes political authority. This completes the tragedy. Prince Hamlet is the central character of the play. He is the son of the dead King Hamlet and Queen Gertrude. He is intelligent, reflective, skeptical, and deeply affected by his father's death. His central problem is the conflict between thought and action. He wants to avenge his father's murder, but he does not want to act without sufficient certainty. His hesitation is one of the most important features of his character. However, Hamlet is not simply incapable of action. He does take action at several important moments. He kills Polonius, escapes from the English plot, returns to Denmark, confronts Laertes, and finally kills Claudius. His tragedy comes from the combination of his desire for justice, his uncertainty, his intelligence, and the increasingly destructive circumstances around him. King Claudius is Hamlet's uncle and stepfather. He has murdered King Hamlet and taken the throne. He is intelligent, politically capable, and manipulative. Unlike Hamlet, Claudius acts decisively. He attempts to protect his position by using spies, political authority, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and eventually Laertes. His central weakness is his desire to keep the power he gained through murder. Although he feels guilt, his desire for the crown prevents genuine repentance. He becomes the main antagonist of the play. Queen Gertrude is Hamlet's mother and Claudius's wife. Her rapid marriage to Claudius deeply disturbs Hamlet. The play does not establish that Gertrude participated in King Hamlet's murder. Instead, she appears largely unaware of Claudius's crime. Her death occurs when she unknowingly drinks the poisoned wine intended for Hamlet. Polonius is a royal advisor and the father of Laertes and Ophelia. He is talkative, suspicious, and frequently attempts to control the lives of others. He spies on Hamlet and later hides behind the curtain while Hamlet speaks with Gertrude. Hamlet kills him accidentally. His death becomes the direct cause of Laertes' desire for revenge. Ophelia is Polonius's daughter and Hamlet's former love interest. She becomes trapped between the demands of her father, the political world of Claudius, and Hamlet's increasingly disturbing behavior. After Hamlet kills Polonius, Ophelia becomes psychologically disturbed. She eventually dies by drowning. Her death contributes to Laertes' desire for revenge and therefore becomes part of the final chain of destruction. Laertes is Polonius's son and Ophelia's brother. He provides a contrast to Hamlet. Both men lose their fathers. Both want revenge. But Laertes is much more direct and decisive. He quickly joins Claudius's plan to kill Hamlet. However, when Laertes realizes that the revenge plot has resulted in his own death, he recognizes the injustice of the situation and asks Hamlet for forgiveness. Horatio is Hamlet's loyal friend. He is one of the few characters Hamlet can trust. He witnesses the appearance of the ghost and remains close to Hamlet throughout the play. At the end, Hamlet asks Horatio to survive and tell the story. Horatio therefore becomes the principal surviving witness to the tragedy. Fortinbras is the Prince of Norway. His political and military ambitions form a parallel to Hamlet's personal struggle. While Hamlet is concerned with revenge and moral uncertainty, Fortinbras acts decisively in pursuit of political objectives. At the end, Fortinbras arrives in Denmark after the royal family has been destroyed and takes control of the political situation. Revenge is the central action of the play. The ghost asks Hamlet to avenge King Hamlet's murder. Laertes seeks revenge for Polonius's death and Ophelia's suffering. Fortinbras represents another form of conflict connected with political and military action. The play shows that revenge does not remain limited to one person. It creates a chain of violence. King Hamlet is murdered. Hamlet seeks revenge. Polonius dies. Laertes seeks revenge. The revenge plot eventually destroys Hamlet, Laertes, Gertrude, Claudius, and much of the Danish royal household. Another major theme is appearance and reality. Characters frequently hide their true intentions. Hamlet pretends to be mad. Claudius presents himself as a legitimate and concerned king while secretly being a murderer. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern appear as Hamlet's friends but work for Claudius. Polonius spies on others while presenting himself as a wise advisor. The play therefore repeatedly asks whether appearances can be trusted. This is one of the reasons Hamlet finds it difficult to determine what is true. Madness is another important theme. Hamlet deliberately pretends to be mad. Ophelia, however, actually becomes psychologically disturbed after the death of her father and the breakdown of her relationship with Hamlet. The contrast between Hamlet's apparent madness and Ophelia's mental collapse makes the subject especially important. The play also leaves the audience uncertain about how far Hamlet's performance affects his real psychological condition. Death appears throughout the play. The story begins with the death of King Hamlet. The ghost represents the continuing presence of the dead. Hamlet repeatedly thinks about death. Polonius, Ophelia, Gertrude, Laertes, Claudius, and Hamlet all eventually die. The graveyard scene makes death particularly important. Hamlet realizes that death ultimately makes social distinctions meaningless. Kings, ordinary people, and powerful individuals all become part of the same physical reality. One of the central questions of the play is why Hamlet delays revenge. Hamlet does not simply refuse to act. Instead, he wants certainty. He questions the reliability of the ghost. He uses the play to test Claudius. He thinks about the consequences of killing Claudius. His intelligence leads him to consider many possibilities. But excessive thought can also prevent action. The play therefore explores the conflict between thinking and doing. The performance arranged by Hamlet is one of the most important structural devices in Hamlet. Hamlet uses theatre to test Claudius. The fictional murder performed on stage resembles the real murder of King Hamlet. Claudius's reaction gives Hamlet evidence of his guilt. This technique connects the ideas of performance, truth, deception, and reality. The ghost begins the central revenge plot. It provides Hamlet with information about King Hamlet's death. But the ghost also creates uncertainty. Hamlet must decide whether the supernatural figure can be trusted. Therefore, the ghost is both a source of information and a source of doubt. Shakespeare frequently allows Hamlet to speak alone on stage. These speeches reveal his thoughts directly to the audience. Through them, we understand his grief, uncertainty, moral questions, and changing attitude toward death and action. The soliloquies are therefore essential to understanding Hamlet's character. The audience often knows information that some characters do not know. For example, the audience knows that Claudius is guilty while other characters do not. The audience also knows about the poisoned sword and wine before the final duel. This creates dramatic irony without requiring exaggerated storytelling. To conclude, Hamlet by William Shakespeare is the tragedy of a prince who is commanded to avenge the murder of his father. The ghost of King Hamlet tells Prince Hamlet that Claudius murdered him and took the throne. Hamlet decides to investigate the accusation. He pretends to be mad and observes the behavior of the people around him. He eventually uses a play to test Claudius's reaction, and Claudius's response convinces Hamlet of his guilt. However, Hamlet delays killing Claudius. During a confrontation with his mother, Hamlet accidentally kills Polonius. Claudius then attempts to have Hamlet killed in England. Hamlet escapes and returns to Denmark. Meanwhile, Ophelia dies, and Laertes returns seeking revenge. Claudius and Laertes organize a fencing match using a poisoned sword and poisoned wine. The plan fails completely. Gertrude drinks the poison. Laertes and Hamlet wound each other with the poisoned sword. Laertes reveals Claudius's conspiracy. Hamlet finally kills Claudius. But Hamlet, Gertrude, and Laertes all die. Horatio survives to tell the story. Finally, Fortinbras arrives and assumes control of Denmark. The tragedy therefore ends with the destruction of the old royal order and the beginning of a new political order. The central lesson of Hamlet is not simply that revenge is successful or unsuccessful. The play shows how revenge, uncertainty, deception, moral conflict, and political corruption can create a chain of consequences that ultimately destroys both the person seeking revenge and the society around him. For students of English literature, Hamlet is especially important because it combines a powerful tragic plot with deep questions about human action, conscience, mortality, truth, appearance, and responsibility. That is the complete story and major literary significance of Hamlet by William Shakespeare. If this explanation helped you understand the complete plot, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more detailed English literature summaries, drama explanations, novels, short stories, poems, and important literary works. Thank you for watching.